The feeding of the 5,000 is one of Jesus's more noticeable miracles. It's one of many. But it's one that it gets brought up, and it's obviously in multiple accounts within the Gospels, multiple stories. And it's interesting to me because one of the things which I think gets maybe a little bit lost a lot of times in kind of the wow factor of these miracles is that Jesus oftentimes did these to fill needs that were going on with individuals. It really showed his general compassion and love for people. So here you have a crowd, you have people who he's healing and he's helping, and they're obviously hungry. They've been out there all day. They've been following Jesus all day. They haven't had a chance to have a meal. His disciples recognize that and suggest sending him away. And Jesus instead says, well, no, you feed them. It's in some ways a reflection of what is going to be coming spiritually after his death and resurrection, when the disciples themselves are going to be responsible for feeding Jesus's flock in a spiritual manner. In this case, he's talking, physically, like actually physiologically, physically. And of course, the disciples, they didn't have anything there. They didn't have the food to really do it. But that's kind of the setup for what Jesus is going for here in this sort of situation, which is, to perform something miraculous that they would remember, that has meaning, and that, also kind of makes the point that, I feed my people, and down the line, you are going to as well. Now, this did cause some confusion. There's accounts in the Gospels that there's people who are still following after Jesus, thinking, that he was, going to be giving them, more good food to eat. And this is part of the reason why we get in John, Jesus talking about, I am the bread of life. Whoever eats of me, you'll never hunger. I'm the true bread. But it's still, one of those things which I think is just kind of an interesting part of Jesus' ministry. Now, what does that mean for us today? What is, Jesus taking care of people's needs through oftentimes miraculous means mean for us as individuals today? Well, it really gives us a guide for how we should be approaching ministry. I think so often when we're reaching out to our communities around us, we tend to go really extremely one way or the other, that we either focus entirely on the spiritual needs and completely ignore, the actual real problems that people are facing right now, or we go the other way and we focus purely on those very real issues and we don't focus on these more spiritual elements that we need to tend to as well. And really, we're called to do both. We are called to feed the hungry, to help the poor, to help the sick, but we're also called to reach out to them, to show God's love and help them to experience that and come into relationship with God themselves. And that doesn't mean that you do things with the idea that, I've now helped you, now, say this prayer and give your life to Jesus. Like that's not the point. The point is that, our actions should guide people in that way. There's a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, so I might get this horribly wrong. The quote, it goes, preach the gospel continuously, use words when necessary. And that's a philosophy that I think we as the church really need to stick to and be willing to go with, to let our actions show that what Christ's love for the entire world and for humanity is. And if we do that, we will see we will be able to help people both at a very real level as well as in that spiritual level as well, in bringing them back to God. So that's what I have for you this week. I hope that you found it helpful, that you taken it to heart. I'm going to go ahead and leave us now with our last worship song today. So I'd like to invite you all to join me as we sing it.